Hello, I'm Dean Karstens, and this is Dean's N-Scale Trains. This is the second video of a two-part video series where I talk about making this little cardstock fire station. I think it turned out pretty well. So in the last video, I first told about where you could get cardstock buildings relatively cheaply, such as this one. This is the what I got for the fire station. Instructions, both major sides of the building, a small side of the building, and a roof. There are two advantages to cardstock buildings. First, they're relatively cheap. You can buy something like this for $5 or $10, or if the people selling them have a sale, you might get several for $20 or $30, who knows. The other advantage is the resolution on them is beautiful. The details on the various parts that you print out are very, very nice. This is the printout page that I made when I put together this cardstock building, and I talked about that in the last video. The disadvantage is they're very hard to cut out. These are the parts for my N-scale railroad. As you can see, I made these in 3 parts. The back part, the front part with the windows, and a spacer to give it a little bit of 3-dimensionality. Cutting these things by hand would be very, very difficult. But in the last video, I showed you how I did it on a cutting machine. Very, very quickly, very, very easily. So in the last video, I showed you where to get them. I showed you the printout, and I showed you how they cut. They were cut, and I started to glue the pieces together. In this video, I'm going to finalize putting this together, showing you how I glued everything together, how I used a PVA part to mount it so it's waterproof. So let's get started. So here's the final building. I think you will agree it turned out very nice and looks very good. I want to cut some internal pieces with some thick manila paper, manila cardboard. For that, I only need the outlines. I don't need all of this stuff. So I'm going to first simplify this. I'm going to getting rid of the grid. Now I'm getting rid of the registration marks, turn those off. And I want just the pieces with the black cuttings. Now let's see how that's going to cut. That should be fine. Now I don't have to print this out. After pushing the cut button, here's what it looks like at 8 times speed. Now let's see what we've got. Looks okay. So when everything is sandwiched together, as you can see, it just gives a little bit more thickness there. I'm going to start gluing these things together. I'm using my gluing aid that I showed how to make in a previous video. I'll leave the reference down below. Put the first piece, and I'm going to try this Loctite Super Glue Ultra Liquid Control. See how that works. I've previously tested this to make sure it's nicely lined up. Now I'm going to put a piece of wax paper over that and put down some magnets. As you can see, this piece came out pretty good, and I think you can notice that the added thickness really adds to the model. So now I'm going to continue with the rest of this 4 sides, the other 3 sides. Using a chopper from Northwest Short Lines that I got years ago, I cut 4 balsa pieces. I squared up the edge with some sandpaper, 220 sandpaper. And I again used a few drops of super glue to hold those in place. Now I'm ready to start putting the larger pieces on. Make sure they're lined up correctly. And the larger piece should touch this floor. Before I glue these together, I want to darken the top a few millimeters. That's going to be the back of the upper part of the wall. I'm just using a black Sharpie for this. I also very carefully blacken the top of the walls. Incidentally, sometimes I use Elmer's washable clear glue rather than the super glue. The only problem is it takes a little longer to dry. Be sure you use wax paper below it to keep it from sticking to the metal. Now I'm ready to put the final assembly together. I've fastened the front wall here and held it with magnets. Now I'm going to get my Elmer's hold that tightly, drop in a couple of magnets. Oops. I much prefer going together rather than where I want them. All right, I'm going to use a square here to square up this side. And the only way to hold that is like that. It's not tremendously strong, but that should be all right. And this one should be all right. Okay, it's time to finish the roof. I've cut some spacers here, some stiffeners, and I will put these down with white glue. Doesn't have to be translucent. And I'll put a couple of paper close pins. Let those dry for a bit. So I took the printed piece and I glued it to balsa wood. For that I used this super glue contact cement, since it's non-aqueous. Now you see how this is a little bit bowed, which actually gives it a pretty nice look. And running a bead along here. Put a bit of a weight on this. And letting it dry. At this point I decided to make 4 edge pieces, L-shaped edge pieces, to cover the ends, to clean up the sides. I want to make 4 copies of a rectangle chosen from this piece of the back wall. I want to match this color. Took a copy of that rectangle, put it on this page in red, to be 45.5 millimeters long, which is the height of the walls, and about 3 millimeters on each side here. And I've put in a green cut line. That will be a score line when we print this out. Now I've made 4 copies of these rectangles with the green score lines in the middle, and I'm going to send it to the printer, send it to the cutter, and cut it out. Putting on these corners is going to be a very, very delicate operation. I hope I can do it. Put a minimal amount of clear Elmer's. Spread it out. But that really improves the looks of this. So here's the 3D printer in action. Okay, now that it's cooled, you can take it off the plate. You have to do a little cleanup, but that looks pretty good. So So I glued this on to my 3D printed plate with my contact cement. And now I'm weighting it down with some excess tiles I had around the house. So I'm ready to glue down the building. I've taped this metal edge to mark where I want to put it, and this tape here over to mark the left-hand side. And all I need to do is glue it and put it in place. So when I turn this over, I found that the two side walls are a bit warped, and so I straightened them up by adding these stiffeners. And now we're ready to glue this. We'll go right there. Take my clear glue. This has to be done carefully. Oops. That's a little better. Back a bit. Okay. Here we go. Keep our fingers crossed. Line it up. Set it down. And I'm going to put a bit of weight on top of it to hold it while it dries. And now I think we're done with this building. So here's the final building. I think you will agree it turned out very nice and looks very good. As always, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, Deans and Scale Trains. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.